Today, I want to say a few amazing things about Starfield and the Free Lanes update, but I'm worried about what that will mean going forward. And no, I'm not concerned with the insatiable lunatics online that can't be reasoned with. I know how to deal with them. It's actually Bethesda I'm worried about. Keep in mind, this is just about the Free Lanes update. I'm purposefully avoiding the Terran Armada DLC for now because that's what a responsible critic does. I understand the pressure of wanting to be first, but you're not doing anyone any favors trying to speedrun a thorough review, especially when addressing an entirely new audience. It's not fair to them, and it's not fair to Bethesda, for whatever that's worth. You see, years before the Free Lanes update, fans were making the effort to draft mod presentations, PowerPoints, and 3-hour essay videos on how the game could be improved. But the devs would respond with confusing takes like,
"Maybe we should have held back on releasing the moon buggy."
The point I'm making here is that I'm not sure how positive feedback lands on Bethesda's ears. If it were up to the loyalists, we wouldn't even have half of these new additions, and they have nothing but positive things to say about Starfield. So, what's the correct play here? Consider our circumstances only weeks after Starfield's initial release, with Bethesda having the entire industry runway, every molecule of oxygen in the room, and all the good grace in the universe. They had thousands of hours of player data to work with, classic games under their belt to compare their current quality to, and a talented group of modders to draw decades of inspiration from at their disposal. Yet we still got $10 ship habs, $7 single mission creations, $3 weapon skins, and in-game character clones. All that said, however, Bethesda might have done something revolutionary here with Starfield, right under everyone's noses. But I'm not necessarily sure if that's a good or bad thing yet. In order to properly explain why I'm conflicted about all of this, I need to share with you a very bad example of what I'm worried about. I know this isn't the best example ever, but understand, this is an extremely unusual position to be in. Imagine you're a regular working guy, moving up the ranks in a promising field. You happen to spot a strikingly gorgeous young lady working at Target. You strike up a harmless, endearing conversation and casually bring up that a gorgeous girl like her working at a place like Target is an interesting choice. In addition to suggesting other places that would pay much more and she'd greatly benefit from being as attractive as she is, like the hospitality and travel industry, for example. You mostly consider them to be low-stakes, harmless suggestions. Imagine after weeks of casual, constructive conversation, back and forth, she excitedly shares with you one day that she finally decided to start her OnlyFans page. At this moment, I already know that I lost some of you, but for those who understand what I'm implying, even a little bit, what do you even say here? What's the proper reply? Remember, you and this girl aren't friends. Not yet. You don't really know much about this person at all. We all obviously know that the cowardly thing to do is be blindly supportive, respect her girl boss autonomy, and just move on. But the more honest, integrity-based response is much more complicated than that. Before deciding to give Bethesda any praise about the Free Lanes updates, I was sure to do extensive research on the topic of micro upgrades and what substantial games are known for implementing this system fairly well. As far as action-based RPGs go, there aren't very many. So the whole argument about who actually did it first or who did it better is non-existent. This isn't really an established, figured-out mechanic in RPGs overall. This is actually kind of new territory. The proper industry term for this mechanic is what devs call horizontal progression or granular stat progression. The most notable comparisons I found were Path of Exile and Diablo 2 and 3, but that's about as close a comparison as it gets. The manner in which it's implemented in Starfield is so well done, it's tough to imagine it was a happy accident or a system borrowed directly from another IP. Praising the system itself in a vacuum would be disingenuous, but it's not just the system alone. It's a number of other integral systems it touches that are greatly improved because of its addition. It encourages players to engage and experiment with other features they normally wouldn't touch. If you're extremely conservative with your skill points and resources in game like I am, the Free Lanes update and its micro upgrades feel very rewarding to bank and allocate. And don't get me started on the database feature. That's a whole other beast. As a result, planet exploration is greatly improved, ground combat is greatly improved, space combat is greatly improved, and the newer space exploration benefits from it. Yes, you can literally find your next 500,000 credit upgrade lying around in a random fridge at a random base on a random planet. Starfield's odd manner of exploration starts to make a bit more sense and greater context with this manner of micro-progression, which includes the major improvements to chest loot. My biggest concern, however, is that it took the more discerning, critical members of Bethesda's fandom brutally twisting their arm just to get here. That's not something that's going to continue working in the future. Bethesda's going to have to want to be excited about or enthusiastic about revolutionizing gaming as we understand it today. But if their interest still rests in selling us cheap merchandise, microtransactions, keeping the better parts of their video games behind a paywall, or being too cynical to write the next great American novel, none of this matters. No doubt the Free Lanes update is amazing stuff, but sadly, it's still not enough. With all the great things this update adds, there's still glaring shortcomings with the game that were hardly touched, which makes it impossible to know exactly where Bethesda's priorities are with this IP. Since I'm forced to guess, I have to assume that the devs with this update appear to be interested in proving some misguided point to each other, that they can covertly make the next revolutionary system of ARPGs in Starfield and nobody would notice or care. Perhaps they're right. Perhaps this is their way of showcasing that fact to one another internally, the pointlessness of putting any real, substantial effort into their products. To which I'd reply, have some self-respect. As much as you may want it to be, Bethesda, for once, this isn't an us problem. If you have some weird, secret contempt for your audience, find another outlet to express your disdain. Placing it in the products you're selling is unprofessional.